Here's a place where all of us can be safe. Our stories of transformation can be safe, and all the things we want to research are safe here. This is Safe Space with Cheyenne. I'm really excited you're here, and I hope you stick around for a while, because I've got a lot to show you before I leave Earth. I love you guys.
Welcome back to our safe space, my friends. Today I have a lovely human being that I have not only been on her solo podcast, but also her joint podcast. Her name is Lesli Corbin. She's the founder of Quantum Journey. She does a lot of past life modalities, specifically QHHT, which I'm a huge fan of. She's also the co-host of Mystical Mermaid Lounge and the solo host of Quantum Journey podcast. Today we're going to talk about not only her story, but maybe some client stories or how she even got in or over the hump and belief in what QHHT, past life regression, can bring us and where she is on her journey today. So, hello, Lesli. How are you?
Oh, I am so happy to be here with you again, Cheyenne. Again, meaning us together, not on this venue. So thank you so much for having me.
Your voice is just always so sweet and warming. It's like biting into a sugar cookie right out of the oven or like butter melting. And I've already said that before, but I enjoy talking to you so much, not only about the substance that we get to talk about and the deep layers we get to go through, but your voice is just, it makes me feel so good. It's like a Hertz frequency when I talk to you. I know you've never been complimented like this before, but seriously, you have such a warming presence, even in the digital space, but your voice, just even in my little ear right now. That's why I like to listen to your podcast in my car. It's just surround sound, baby.
That is amazing because I always joke that the first time we hear our voices, unless you're like, I don't know, someone amazing, Aretha Franklin, or I don't know, someone just absolutely amazing. I think that the first time we hear our voices, we're like, who is that crazy ass person?
Yes,
they
absolutely.
should keep their mouth shut. Yeah, and the first time I heard my voice, I shut off the recording device. I did not ever want to hear that again. I ran around my house like a crazy person saying, I have no business even starting a podcast. I can't believe I've been talking on the phone for years and people have been listening to this. And it came to me that if we don't hate our own voices, we haven't been listening. So I make myself feel okay with that. So the fact that you've said that just totally blows me away. I am not going to pry. I'm just going to accept that as one of the best compliments I have ever been given because I am not a huge fan of my voice.
Oh,
We'll take
I
it.
think we all feel like that. Thank you for taking the compliment. If you gave it back, that's fine. I mean, I wouldn't be mad about it. But I have had all of those same moments, especially editing your own stuff, going through, figuring out what you want to say, how you want to say it, the imposter syndrome that comes along with all of that. Like, we're in the same boat with that. And again, like the first time I heard my voice, I was like, who the hell is that? That's what people hear when I talk to them. Oh my gosh.
And it's so lovely. So I understand how it feels for you to feel that way, but having never heard you any other way, it's so lovely. So we just have to, it's kind of one of those things where we just have to trust that someone's giving us that feedback and just go with it.
You're getting feedback from an Aquarius, so it's for sure.
I was raised by an Aquarian and I survived that, so I can handle you, Cheyenne.
I get it. No, nice words today. That's funny. I was raised by an Aquarius. My poor daughter. My daughter's an Aquarius too, though. So like I'm raised in training. Yeah, all of us are. Me, my husband, and my daughter are all Aquariuses.
That's amazing. I never wanted to be a Cancer because I thought that was a sign of weakness. I always thought Aquarians had just a really cool strength to them, an independent streak, a quirky creative streak that I just thought was amazing.
I'm going to take all that because I feel a lot of that about me. When I start feeling like, oh, you're really weird, I'm like, well, it's in your zodiac, so live with it. It's not going away. Okay, so we got the Aquariuses off our list. We got my compliment train going on. So I talked to you on your podcast and then your co-hosted podcast, but obviously those episodes were centered towards me and you being the host. So now I get to be in the host seat and I get to hear about your journey and your story. So as always, I ask every guest, where do you feel comfortable starting your story off? There's always like an event line almost where you were this way and then you went this way in life. So
There's always a divergence, isn't there?
yeah, there's always that.
And then often a confluence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the question. And I think it is a story of coming back or remembering myself. When my sister and I were very young, and I include my sister because I have a twin, so a lot of my life has been shared with someone who is only a 5-minute difference between the two of us. So we experienced a lot of these things together, which was super cool because, as you know, Cheyenne, a lot of the things that happen to you during an awakening moment or when something paranormal-ish or metaphysical-ish happens, it's really good to have someone to bounce something off of. And fortunately for me, I was raised with that person. Well, I didn't have much choice. We were in utero together, and then, obviously we lived together. So a lot of our experiences are shared and confirming back and forth. So she and I were able to hear spirit as very young children, and we continued to hear on and off and paid attention to it, not knowing it was really a big deal all through teenage years. And then life happens. We both went to college and got married. I had kids, blah, blah, blah. And I decided that I needed to be on a corporate track, and that's where life goes. And I needed to make money and be in this 3D world. And as I was on that path, and as my children were getting older, some things happened with the health of my son that, as well as my mom, that forced me to halt everything that I had been doing from a corporate standpoint and question, why am I here? And as I was digging into this, I started having memories of things that my sister and I had experienced when we were young and while we were growing up, and hearing spirit and getting different impressions and information intuitionally. And I decided, while I had the break and was really questioning why so many things that were so painful were happening in my life, all of a sudden, these things started to converge into, this is spirit, this is what you want to know. And how do these things, in fact, fit together? Because I had never thought of them fitting together. They kind of existed separately. Who is God? Who exactly is she? And then all of this intuitional stuff happening over here. And it never dawned on me that these were all intermingled. So fast forward in my existential search for why do things happen, painful things happen to people, good, bad, or indifferent. It's indiscriminate, right? And what exactly is my purpose here in not only understanding what that means, but what I'm supposed to do with that in order to help? I decided to pursue energy. there we are, to pursue energy healing and some different things and look into different modalities and really tap into this intuition that and this ability, this clairaudient ability that I've always had. So, make a long story short, I went to see Sherry Dillard, who is a very well-known psychic medium in the Northeast Mid-Atlantic area. And I took a couple of classes from her. And she said, Lesli, you're very powerful. And I see you writing a book and working with people's past lives. And I said, oh, God, that sounds terrible. But thanks for the input. So we move forward a year or two later. And I continue to develop, learning, more so to read tarot cards, all kinds of stuff to help with intuitional development. And a friend of mine saw this medium psychic, and she's like, hey, Lesli, while we're here, just sit down, see this person with me. And so I did. And she said, oh, I see you writing a book and working with people's past lives in their Akashic records. And I said, I feel like I've heard this before. And I said, what about mediumship? Like, I'm super interested in talking to dead people. And she said, how dead do you want them to be? Like 400 years old, like past lives. And I thought that was cute, but still not where I was going with this thing. And then about 2 or 3 years ago, I realized when I looked at people, I could see their past lives. I was like, oh my gosh, this is all coming to fruition. And I don't know whether it was something that I'd always been able to do and just could now name it, or that it just, because of these years of seeking and searching and wondering what in the world I'm doing here, it all just became clear to me. But I can definitely look at you and I can give you probably 2 or 3 past lives and your soul signature all at the same time. And I didn't know what to do with this. So I asked someone named Patty Halls, who she just had her final Karma Fest, but she had run a metaphysical, very open, spiritual, safe place for anybody spiritually. She had operated 2 festivals a year for the last 20 years. And I had asked her to do a soul purpose reading for me. And she did not know who I was per se. She just knew I was in the Karma Fest community as someone who had gone to festivals in the past, that type of thing. And she told me I should be reading people's past lives. And the amazing irony of all 3 of those individuals coming together saying essentially the same thing, and then my realizing that this was something that I could do on my own, all just kind of dovetailed. So I took the training for QHHT because it seemed like a very respected modality, and found a way to offer that. And people really enjoy that modality, but then also to share separately the things that I see and what I believe is a soul signature that kind of ties together what a person's soul mission is throughout life. So that is it in a nutshell.
That's it, folks. Thanks for tuning in. I don't have any questions. I'm already blown away by this. Okay, I have to back up for a minute. I already knew you were a twin.
I'm sorry, honey. I'm old. It's a long story.
No, you're hilarious. But I'm like, I have to back up because I always like put my little pins in and I'm like, I gotta ask about this. This is fascinating because I guess when I met you, I was thinking that you liked the past life stuff because you got into QHHT, and now hearing your story for the first time, yes, I knew you were a twin from listening to your podcast and the road trip that you went on and like all the vulnerable things that you shared with your sister. Like, are you okay that, I'm like this? And he's like, well, yeah, we're twins. My first question, I have so many. I hope I remember them all. My first question is, do you think that building your clairaudience and the belief in your clairaudience was easy because of the connection that you've had with your twin your whole life? Because there's the twin telepathy thing that people talk about and have studied. So you both, yes, were connected to spirit, but you were also intrinsically connected to each other. So did you have like that bond with your twin already? So when the clairaudience came online, you're like, yeah, I've been practicing this my whole life.
I'd never thought of it this way, but it's funny that you asked that question because my husband and my children have always said, remember, we're not Aunt Michelle, my sister's name, or my husband would say, I'm not your sister. You have to answer out loud, because we would, for many years, just kind of have half conversations. So do you? Yeah, I'm fine. What did you guys just say? That type of thing, which I think happens a lot in families. So I'm not sure that that's anything super special between twins, but your point is well taken. Is there she is. Is there some sort of special bond between siblings and twins, especially because we were raised together, in utero together, in each other's worlds, so intermingled for so long? I would have to say yes. And so it was clear that clairaudience was something that she and I had both shared with each other and then outside. So I agree with that question.
Wonderful. That was the first thing that popped up. I'm like, what practice you have? I wonder if you realized, obviously, you're being prepared for something bigger. Now, moving on to the past lives, because I'm always interested in trying to ground it the best I can for people to be like, what do you mean? Is it a third eye vision that you see, or is it translucent apparitions behind the person when you talk about being able to let people know or just see the past lives in them?
Good question. It can be either. But for the most part, I do have what they call objective sight. So there are things that, for instance, I will see flying through a room or coming through a wall. And when that first started happening to me, I would like hold my hand out. The first time it happened to me, it looked like a hummingbird coming through my wall. And my first instantaneous thought is, oh no, because my sister has a bird and she lives with me. So I'm thinking her bird must have gotten out of her room. So I'm thinking it must be in my room. So I'm holding out my hand for it to land, and it just kind of disappears. And then it reforms and flies out the window. So there is some of that. But for the most part, when I look at you, I see a full, now we know they're called reels, or some sort of video clip that runs, and then I'll see another one, and usually another one, and there's a image that comes up that shows me, like, for instance, when I look at you, I see a number of video clips, but I also see you holding a woven basket, and you have some sort of indigenous dress, something leather buckskinish on with fringes. And I can tell that there's a very indigenous, earthy relationship that you have. And I think it's tribal, and I think you're a teenage girl. Okay, so when I see that. But the point is, you're holding something in your hand. So those things, not just the reels that I would have, the fact that it ends like with something, in your case, seeing you holding a basket or a woven plate in your hand, would tell me that you're gathering and giving. So I would have to kind of figure out what exactly that is, and that you weave together fabrics, important fabrics or important materials, and then gather and give something back. So I started seeing it that way. But that is third eye. Those types of things are third eye.
I can confirm this so hard for you right now, and I am so excited that you brought this up, because this is the multiple time that this has been brought up, and I would love to break this down for you. So when I found past life regression from like a therapeutic stance, and I was like, oh, I wonder if I went to a past life regressionist, it would really like unbind some like clogging in me or something that I brought in with me. Because I'm a huge believer in karma, and I definitely think you can bring it in lifetime after lifetime, unconsciously or not. But there was like, it was more like in a psychological or like a psychiatric form is how it was presented, like back in the 2000s, not QHHT, or even the accessibility of it where I was in Illinois was just like not possible. So then I took another step where they're like, oh, well, you can do a meditation, and you can do a guided meditation, and it'll like walk you down a set of stairs, and you do breathing in between, and then you open the door. And when you open the door, you're going to walk up the stairs, and you're going to walk into one of your past lives. And this is why I've recommended people to go to a past life regressionist and not do this stuff on your own based on my experience, but I'm sure other people have had good experiences. But when people obviously want my advice, I'm going to say, go to a regressionist. You need a safe space for that. But I went ahead and I did. I laid on my bedroom floor. I was probably 21 years old. I walked down the stairs. I opened the door, and I walked up. No, I didn't walk up into anything. Before I opened the door, there was smoke coming out from under the door. And I was like, well, this is terrifying. So I still opened the door. And when I walked through the door, I was in a teepee that was on fire. And I ran out, and there was, havoc all around. I still remember shaking myself out of it, but I could see the moccasins that I was wearing and the beadwork and the fringe that I had on. And I wrote it down in a notebook and kind of moved away from it, because obviously I was terrified, and I was like, okay, probably not going to do that again. But that was like a seed planted is what I think. So years later, I do a QHHT session, but this was with a psychic medium that helped me with my awakening. And she did a little bit of a past life reading in the middle of our present day reading. And she starts telling me about like the headband and the beadwork that I was wearing. And it was the same beadwork from the original guided meditation. And we were talking about this wound that I carried into this life with me, where someone had taken like an arrowhead spear and stabbed me through my left ovary. And I had always had problems with my left ovary like my whole life, in and out of doctor's office with it. Even like one doctor was saying like the likelihood of you like being pregnant when you're older could be slim to none. You have a tremendous amount of scarring on this specific ovary. Like you're literally only ovulating basically on this side, which makes no sense to me. And I'm in my 20s, so I was kind of fine with it. But then when I went to her and she was talking to me about the wound, that it was someone that I trusted in that life, and that they basically like turned their back on me at the end, I started seeing the image of like another girl who had stabbed me. So, you kind of put that in the bucket of spiritual experiences, because it's all a puzzle piece, right? You're not going to figure everything out. So a couple weeks later, I went to one of my Reiki friends to do some Reiki on a knee injury that I had. And she hovers. She doesn't know anything. I don't tell any of my friends or practitioners about what we see in the image, because I want to keep that channel clear. I don't want people talking to each other and then, clouding it up. So we did Reiki. She puts her hand over my ovary and she goes, do you know that you have an arrowhead stuck in your ovary? And I was like, kind of like you when they're telling you you're going to read past lives. I'm like, shut up. Stop it. It's the part where it almost feels like fantasy in a way, and like having a belief in it. Your logical brain just doesn't want to get on board with it. But I'm like, myself, a psychic, Reiki, the other person, like they're all talking about this specific time, and they all talk to me about the same beadwork. So I did at one time end up tracking down the history of the beadwork and it was a tribe around Colorado at the time, because I started having dreams afterwards. Like every time I would work with somebody, I could see like past life dreams coming in. So this is number 5 for me, and I absolutely love that that's what you saw. I have always been extremely curious in love with anything indigenous, especially moving to Wichita. It was tremendous with all of the indigenous culture that we have there. I felt like I went there for a reason, and that's where I got a lot of that information out. So thank you so much for like doing that on this and telling me that, because that just adds another beautiful piece to my puzzle as well.
I'm wondering, because I'm trying to remember when we interviewed you, Cheyenne, because I'm always looking to debunk myself. So I know for a fact we never talked about you weaving anything. I don't know. I may recall. I'm telling you, I don't recall. Now that you're telling me this, I'm remembering we might have talked about that on the podcast, but I can tell you when I was seeing that, that was not in my mind.
And maybe we did. It's been a little while, so I probably could have started like, hey, this is what I saw, but still, I'm the same way. I always try to debunk myself too. When I was in New Orleans, when I was 21, I had a very powerful psychic I met in the back of Mary LeBou's House of Voodoo. And she was like, oh, you're gonna get into energy healing, and you're really gonna study like Reiki, Foley, and a bunch of different modalities. She's like, but when you're older, she's like 40s, 50s, 60s, on and on. She's like, yeah, like you have a gift of just being present and helping. And I was like, what the fuck is Reiki? What is energy healing? Like, I'm so young at the time. I'm like, I just came here to see if I'm gonna be okay. So I can understand, like, when you go and meet people and they're like, hey, you're going to go this way. You're like, okay, lady. Okay.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, I get that. But let's get into, like, some of the, like, the client testimonials. Obviously not giving too much away, but as you want to debunk yourself, there is a part of us that also wants to debunk the modalities that we're using, too. They're not mainstream. The left hemisphere of your brain still trips out. We still want to be grounded, but still have a belief of something outside of ourselves that's bigger, right? So do you have any things that happen with clients that you added a piece to your puzzle or even expanded your mind more throughout?
I've always thought of things in a very layered way. And by that, what I mean is I'll just use a very simple example. When I was a child, there was this one little bridge. It was like through the woods, over the mountain, whatever, to grandma's house we go. That was kind of like the way it was to my grandma's when I was a little kid growing up. I loved going to see my grandma. And there was this little bridge that would go over this creek, and at times it was overswelling with rainwater and potential flash flood issues. And I remember one time we were going over this bridge, and for whatever reason, I'm just a kid, okay? I decide to be dramatic. Oh, I'm so scared. I was probably just, I don't know. Who knows why? I was just being a dramatic little kid. Anyway, I end up eventually being scared to death of bridges. And so I've always wondered, if I didn't put that out there, if I would today have this fear of heights and going over certain bridges. And I live by the Bay Bridge in Maryland, which is one of the longest bridges in the country and one of the scariest in the country. It is known for that. And every time I go over that bridge, I just say to myself, just get over it, just get over it. So there's a part of me that looks at things in layers. What we put out there then potentially manifests. So there is a part of me that says, is this what people see in their past lives, something that they need to see on an energetic layer level that helps explain something for them? like your example with the ovary and having this problem, is this a spiritual explanation? Not in any way that you caused it. That's not what I'm saying. Unlike me in the bridge scenario. I don't teach you to be melodramatic, right? But there is this part of me that wonders, is this an archetype? Is this something that is a way of explaining things that makes sense to our logical mind? And the other part of this has to do with the amount of relief that we get when we have recognized or realized something about ourselves that we've either seen through this past life or in past life review, and said, what exactly could that have meant? Why was it important for me to see this life? So all of these things are very layered to me. So I say all of that to mean part of the QHHT process, which I really like. So if I'm not doing QHHT in particular, I will still pull in this piece, is when we say we're going to let that past life go, but we're talking to the subconscious now. Ego mind, take a little back seat, sit under a tree, read a little book, eat a little apple, take a little snack, do a little thing. We're going to talk with your subconscious. And I have heard, Cheyenne, the most amazing, pointed, poetic, eloquent, diplomatic. I can't even put enough words around the things that subconscious minds have created. To the point that if we did listen to our subconscious more or spoke from that level, I think 3/4 of the issues we have in the world today probably wouldn't exist. I had a client the other day really tell me, and this was so interesting, when she came into her life. So this is why I say, is it energetic layers versus reality, and does it matter? She saw herself wobbling between a jungle, earthen floor type of environment versus a more, and I say this in air quotes, civilized community, buildings, little farms, people with horses, domesticated animals, that type of thing. And she found herself wobbling between the two. And in one life, on one side, she was very out in the open. She was easily seen, but her gifts were hidden. Her ability to heal, her ability to intuit what someone needs on an herbal level for some sort of medicinal purposes, none of those things were tapped into. But she was living out loud her full life, except for that out loud. She ends up being hidden and going to the other side where she does healing, but she is hidden in a home because they do not like Indigenous people on that side. So where she can't be seen, but she is able to practice her gifts and her talents. Did that happen? I don't know, but her subconscious said that right there is the crux of the situation in the world. We are seen as one way, and our gifts are seen another way, and often they're not allowed to blend. How poetic is that? I didn't make that up. And after we were talking through it, she said, I don't even remember saying that. And if you've been through QHHT or any sort of regression where you're really speaking from a very quiet, meditative, almost trance state, and your subconscious is doing all of the talking, and you go back and listen to it, you're like, I had no idea I was that wise. But are we tapping into a soul level, universal wisdom? I have to believe we are.
If I were in your line of work consistently, again, the debunking thing always comes back and forth because I just want people to understand that that's just a part of the journey when you go through. You experience so many wonderful things on the journey, especially when you're working with clients, that you're like, okay, I don't want to get too far out there, but this is absolutely incredible. And what this person said, I mean, you couldn't find in a Mel Robbins book. So, you know, it kind of makes you wonder, like, where do thoughts come from? How is all of this stored in the subconscious? All of these, like, again, left brain questions. But just being in the driver's seat as the host of that, I think is just a phenomenal place for you to be. Like, I know in the beginning you're like, I'm not going to do that. I want to do mediumship. I want to talk about this. But for me, seeing you, I'm like, you just have incredible guidance and access to so many different pieces of the collective is what I think. And you brought up, you know, like, yes, if we all operated from this voice and this aspect and this, like, I don't want to say like trance-like voice, but for lack of a better term, yes, we probably would live in more of like a utopian society. And while you're talking about it, I'm thinking back to my QHHT, where not only did I sit for like 3 weeks ahead of time, and I'm like, yes, I'm going to ask personal questions about me, but I want to ask like existential questions and things that I struggle to believe in. Like, I just want the subconscious to do it. And then I'm going to go one step further and I'm going to publish it on Spotify, because why not put it out there? And I think when people that don't understand the basis of QHHT and how you are going into like a hypnotized theta brainwave state to access another part of yourself, they're hearing that recording of you and they're like, well, that's not Cheyenne. That's not the Leslie that I know. And you're like, exactly. I just, like, we're accessing another point of this. And I didn't remember all the stuff that I said. And when I woke up, I had dried tears down my eyes. Like, the salt was stuck on me. And I felt tremendously lighter. I felt like my third eye was clear. My actual vision was clear. There's something inconceivable to the left side of your brain that happens to you during those things that to me always wanted me to dive in deeper and maybe not actually ever understand it and get the answer, but to have these moments with these clients over and over and over and see all of these past lives. Like, I'm glad we're cosmic friends because I'm a little jealous of your exposure that you get to these. I have only seen like past life and karma type stuff when I used to do tarot reading and all of that. But the gift that you have, and we'll get into the soul signature in a minute because I have questions, but just being able to see past lives, I mean, I just think that's so beautiful and just so, I don't know. I'm really struggling to compliment at the time because I'm kind of blown away the more that we pull your gifts apart to see how they work.
I have to ask you, Cheyenne, did you ask those existential questions? Because my clients ask, you name it, they've asked it.
Yeah, so I am definitely an advocate for like murkier topics, especially like losing somebody to suicide, you know, suicide ideation, just all the things that I've dealt with from a younger age that I never had a podcast to talk to anybody about, right? And there's so many different viewpoints on what happens to somebody if they decide to take their own life before like their soul contract is up, is the nice way I could say it. And I've heard so many, I've read so many, and I was like, well, what if I just asked my subconscious? Because I wonder what her question would be. And hers was, me was poetic. And it was, imagine you went to school, you told your parents you were going to school and you didn't go and they found out you skipped school. It's not that you would necessarily be in trouble. It's that they're extremely disappointed and you had things to do. And I was just like, that's what my subconscious said about someone like there was no blame, there was no duality. it was very soul essence. Let's sit down in this etheric room and let's talk about why you decided to not finish what you were doing. Like how far off the path did you go? How dark did it get? Are there attachments? Like I asked questions along that lines. I asked questions about soul contracts, soulmates, twin flames, historical twin flames that have been like proven to actually come and do stuff for humanity. Like anything that would make like a normal person kind of uncomfortable in a way, like they're not really ready for the information that kind of looks like sci-fi to them. I absolutely wanted to. And then I'm such a big fan of like unconditional love and trying as hard as you can to like love everybody, even though I obviously fail often, but like my core, my true state is love. And I wanted to expand on that from my subconscious mind. And this is the part where I absolutely know, hearing back, I was crying because I could almost like hear my body responding to it. But I can't make the voice that I had in that trance. Even now, if I tried, I can't do it. So when I heard it back, I'm like, well, that's pretty soothing. I wonder how that voice came out. And it seemed like mechanical and soul filled at the same time. Like you were talking to AI in a sense, the way it was responding. And sometimes it would take me longer to respond, which was fine. And then when it would finally come, it would just seem like so poetic and melodic that it was very soothing for me to listen back to my QHHT. But when we got back to like love and one love and where we all come from and all those beautiful things, I was like, I don't care if anybody thinks I'm crazy. If you just listen to this section alone, like you have to understand that this is what all of us are missing. And that was probably my biggest motivator to put it on Spotify. Because just like you in creation, when you're editing or going through it, you're like, oh, I hope I don't get outcasted and burned on a stake because I have this perspective. Oh, I hope that the consuming is nice, but you just got to put yourself out there anyways. You're like, this is my human experience. This is my perspective. This is what's come through my vessel. I'm just going to put it out there. So
I love it. You are like the perfect client for someone like me, because as much as I want to hear what someone's deep level soul questions are about their own lives and their own past, I have questions too, existential level questions. So when I get a client who has similar questions, I love to hear what their take is, because we all pick up energetically on segments that we're able to comprehend at that moment, and that I believe help you and the practitioner.
I definitely think there's a huge reciprocity in energy exchange when you get into this. I think QHHT, I don't know if people pick up on that aspect, maybe just from reading it or seeing it happen. Dolores Cannon, I love so much. I'm so glad that people are still able to do her stuff even though she's gone. I keep waiting for her to pop up in a reading, to be honest. They're like, hey, I talked to Dolores. She told me to write this book. From all of you. Like, I keep waiting for that. But she helped me, like, it broke my brain in a positive way, if that makes sense. It was things that I was already thinking and already wondering, and to have somebody have that evidence for me, but it was just given to me like so softly and in the form of someone that feels like a grandma to me is probably like the nurturing aspect of it too. But I also, when I was looking through your stuff, I was like, I would love to work with her, like just on the basis of QHHT alone. But now I just want to crawl through my computer and go get hypnotized by you now, because I know, like, you've been so vulnerable with like pulling your gifts apart for me. Which, before this question escapes me, when you talk about soul signature and like soul mission, does the clairaudience come through for that? Because I have the same thing you do with the reels and the movie clips and the clairaudience. Like, I am so grateful that I honestly have that gift. And sometimes it doesn't work out in a public setting, and I just like shut down very fast. I'm like, they don't need to know. It doesn't matter. Like, wait for people to come to you. But when it comes to the soul signature, what does that look like or feel like from a third eye or even like a vibrational perspective?
That's a really good question. And before I give the answer, because it's three-pronged actually, I want to give credit to Rebecca Jaffe, who is Akashic Beck on Threads, and I'm sure you've seen her wonderful things out there. I actually had an Akashic reading with her and told her what I would see, what I would hear, what I would experience. And I told her it was a thing that kind of it was a summary of the things that we've just sold together throughout time. And she said, that's a soul signature, Leslie. And I said, may I use that? And she said, absolutely. So I have to give her credit for giving me the words to say it succinctly.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Becca. So I definitely see it in a reel. As I described, I could see you holding a woven basket, but it's a very a flat plate-ish, looking on the bottom, maybe reed or thresh. I'm not sure. Definitely something fibrous. So definitely a flat bottom that can hold and stack things, and then a basket walls around it. That I see as if someone took a picture of you, and I can see you holding it. In most cases, I see the person that is standing in front of me, or as they look right now, but in a traditional dress. So I'll know by that if they feel male or female, but it tells me who they are, right? So I feel that you're female. I see your face, so I know it's you, and I can see what you're holding. It's a clairaudience and a claircognizance of what that means. So to me, like I mentioned, you gather and then you provide. So that is something that has been with you all of your life. You're not scared to ask questions. You're not scared to become more knowledgeable. You're not scared of gathering, but it's never for personal consumption. It's always to share. And so the beauty of that, and I can see you in a couple of other lives as well. I see you offering fish as an example, which is very strange. Salmon. Is another one. So I can see like a basket full of salmon and you handing these things out. So is this a nourishment of someone's soul as well as their bodies that you've been doing throughout your life? Maybe so. I mean, I'd have to really dig into it here, you and me, just kind of, online. That's what I see. But in my head, I'm knowing that it's definitely something that has been part of your lives throughout time. It's definitely part of your purpose. And it's one of the reasons that you have the talents and the gifts that you have. You're a very creative person, which allows you to gather and then provide.
That's so beautiful. I did not know we were going to do this today, so I'm just like, yay. Thank you so much for that. That's so beautiful.
Sure, yeah, for real. I love it. I love seeing these things and letting someone know. And my husband always says this with every oracle card deck. He says, Leslie, I want you to pull out the card that says, you suck. You have no business being on this earth. Move out. And I said, of course that doesn't exist. He said, hence the reason it's BS. And I said, oh, no. That is spoken from this is an experiential place. you're speaking from an experiential place where someone may be feeling downtrodden, or their son is not well, or their mother has just passed. We all have those moments. Or we know somebody who is cruel, maybe to other people, maybe to animals. Cruelty is part of them, but the inner core of who they are is still there. It's pulling off the layers of the experiences that they've had that have dampened, I think, who their souls are. And so that's why I like to say, that's why I like to share, because everyone needs to know that you're wanted here.
I just want to like bow to you almost, because you're absolutely right.
I agree.
The uncovering the layers, the letting go of like, this isn't who I am. And again, that's why I referenced earlier, like, I know for a fact my true state, just like your true state and everybody's true state, is love. So what is separating me from living out of that space? And you have to go investigate all of those. You have to unbind a lot of things. You have to look at a lot of trauma. You have to try a bunch of new modalities. Some things maybe are for you. Some things aren't for you. But yeah, you have such almost like an eloquence in talking about spiritual things. Because when we were breaking down what soul signature feels like, I heard resonance in the body, which is super powerful for anybody doing any type of energy work. Clairaudience and claircognizance, definitely necessary for what you're doing. But then the fact that you enjoy it so much, but you're still such a grounded person, again, like, I love putting people like almost in my list of inspiring spiritualists in my head, because again, this is my job. I've met a lot of people. Thank God, most of the people, I shouldn't even say most, like all the people that I've made my podcast, like, I consider them safe people, which is why I like talking to them. I like promoting them. And then even later when I'm with my friends, they're like, what'd you do this week? And I'll be like, I talked to this lady who's a past life regressionist. Do you want to hear about it? So like, I get to bring the best stories to the cookout, I'm not going to lie. But that just means like how much I've enjoyed like talking to you too and hearing your story. But I really appreciate you taking the time to pull your gifts apart for me, because the show is intended from like my passionate soul heart purpose for anybody that's confused on the gifts that they're having and they feel like they're going insane. They don't have anybody to talk to. They can hear your episode and be like, oh yeah, I do feel things in my body. I know it's true. And whether they understand the third eye or the clair sensors or whatever they're going through, you can be an example for them now, somebody later, and somebody else in the future. So again, I just appreciate you being able to pull that apart for us, but also the way that you speak about things with your excitement and with your groundedness is just like A++ for me.
Thank you so much. Keep gathering and keep giving back. I love that. And I think you have a very important role in disseminating nourishing information. Keep doing it. Keep doing it. And that's a gift. And holding space for people, not easy.
I know that that's a true statement, but I'm also like you from a very like young age. It's just been a part of me. And to say like, I enjoy it, I do, but it's almost like you've been the person that didn't have people there for you in some aspects, or you wanted to just go isolate, not be around people. But when you see what people are going through from the clairsense standpoint, you don't want to be a martyr and be like, oh, I know what you need. I know I can help you. I'm like, just so you know, I can be present and I don't judge when you tell me the shit that you've done or didn't do or that was done to you. And like, that is my superpower. Like, come up on the porch. What are you drinking? Tell me your problems. And that just started out in the country and just evolved over time. So I do enjoy that. I enjoy meeting people like you. I enjoyed talking to you on your solo podcast and your co-hosting podcast. And I felt really safe pulling even the deeper spiritual things apart that most people aren't really into talking about. So yeah, I always enjoy my time with you. I wish that we honestly lived closer and we could like get tea together and talk about stuff and go to museums. And I'll be like, well, what are you seeing right now? This is what I'm seeing. That would be so funny.
It would be super cool. I did kind of see us going into a Native American. We'd be looking at the tribes living on the plains, more of the plains Indians, but then also going into the more wooded, mountainous areas. I see us doing that, and we shall.
I'm in Kansas City now, but if you ever find yourself around the Kansas City area or even around Wichita, Kansas, I mean, I would meet you anywhere, trust me. But if you make your way to Wichita, Kansas, there's a place called Keeper of the Plains. You'll have to look it up after this. And it is a huge dedication to all of the Plains Indians that were there before us. And there's also an indigenous museum right next to it. And anytime life fell off, I was in a good mood, I was in a happy mood, it didn't matter. I went to the Keeper of the Plains. Like, when I went there, I felt activated, and I was like, this is one of the reasons that I moved to Wichita, and I cannot explain it for the life of me why I feel so tranquil and so much peace there. And yes, again, like, you make your way over here, I'll be the best host ever. We'll have the time of our lives. But until then, people can work with you in person, obviously, but you also do things over Zoom. Like, anyone that's listening to this episode, they can get a hold of you and work with you. You don't have to just be one-on-one in person to work with you and your gifts.
That is correct. So I am very accessible as far as doing anything online, electronically. Some people who don't feel good about doing things online, if they prefer phone, we can do it that way. QHHT in and of itself, if it's to be labeled that way, has to be done in person. So there are ways to then have a very similar type of experience, but not in any less way less valuable, in any way less valuable to be able to do something online as well. So I am super happy to work with anyone. It is my passion.
I feel it. I hear it. And I've already done the compliment train on your voice, so I'm going to just let that go to the beginning of the episode. And thank you so, so much again for being vulnerable, coming on, talking to us, having me as a guest on your show. And if you ever would like to come back in this safe space, if you have new stories, new revelations, new gifts pop up, you have a forever ticket into the studio.
Thank you, my friend.
All right, my friends, we will see you on the next episode. If you need any help with past life regression, soul signatures, or just want to listen or hear this lovely woman speak to you, hit that link below and get you some healing. We'll see you on the next episode, my friend.